Sure.
A little bit before the show, you were telling us a little bit about your Air Force career. Could you tell everyone a little bit about your time in the service?
Okay, sure. Actually, I joined the Air Force in 1970. Really didn't plan, I don't have a family history of being in the military, but back then they had a thing called the lottery, the draft. And I usually say tongue-in-cheek that that's the only lottery that I ever won, because in fact it was. I had no plans to go to college or anything like that, but I joined the military, joined the Air Force because I didn't really want to do the Army. And by the time I left the Air Force 23 years later, I had an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. I never left active duty. The military paid for the education, paid me to go to school. It couldn't have been better. So I was put on a career path that I never would have taken otherwise. So I call it for those of us that remember Forrest Gump, I call my career plan the Forrest Gump career plan. I kept stumbling through the correct doors. But, so that's how I started my military career.
Well, Commissioner, from boot camp and just really throughout your career, could you summarize your primary job?
Yeah, it was always supply. I was supposed to be security forces, policeman.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't very big when I was younger. I was about 110 pounds probably. So I thought, don't they have bigger guys for cops? But
and they needed somebody at 120.
Right, right. But as it turned out, they had enough cops during that particular phase of training. So I went into supply and started working in warehouse, driving forklifts, unloading trucks and trains and stuff like that. Okay. And then the last job I had in the Air Force, I was a commander for a supply squadron. So I had risen to the commander's position. From the lowest guy on the deck to the guy in charge. So I thought that was pretty good.
Very good. That's really impressive. Yep. And you mentioned that you didn't want to join the Army. So what was it that caused you to pick the Air Force?
Actually, my uncle was in the Air Force, but before the Air Force, he was in the Navy. Before the Navy, he was in the Army. Mm-hmm. And in the Army, he started losing his hearing. Decided to get out after one hitch in the Army. Was out for about a year and decided, you know what, I kind of like the military, but I don't want to jump out of any more good airplanes. So he went in the Navy, just in time to be on the USS Essex, and he didn't know why, but they were circling in the Caribbean. Later on, he found out it was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they were supposed to go in. So after doing the Navy for 4 years, he decided, you know what, I don't like swabbing decks anymore, and I like jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. So he went in the Air Force. So I said, which one do you think? He said, go in the Air Force. So
that's the long answer. The summary is join the Air Force.
That's right.
Well, Commissioner, you've already touched on this with your academic background, with the military paying for that. Let's talk a little bit about the service, the experiences, that whole package, if you will. How has it really impacted your life today when you reflect back?
Oh, tremendously. Not only, certainly it gave me the education opportunities that I talked about earlier. Beyond that, I obtained a culture of service that I might not otherwise have had. I was not a volunteer, before. I didn't go to a lot of the things in high school, volunteered for committees or anything like that. But one of the things that I learned during my time in the service was how important service is. And service doesn't mean just military service, it means community service. So I think that's where I got infected with the service bug, and it stays with me to this day.
So as you said, it stays with you to this day. Are you connected in any way to the Vance Air Force Base here in Enid?
I am. I am the director for the Retiree Activities Office on base. So we have a group of retirees that help other retirees do things. Early on, you used to go to finance if you wanted to change allotments or anything like that. Well, now the Air Force is like everything else. You do everything online. If you're 80 years old, you probably can't go online, and you certainly can't remember the 16-digit nonsensical password. So we help those people out with the different services that they need. So I do that. I'm part of the AETC Commanders Civic Leaders Group, so I join General Quast 4 times a year, twice by video teleconference and twice in person, so that we can find out, be read in on what's going on, and they value the opinions of the community leaders.
It's our Veterans Day show, and we want to say thank you to all the men and women that have served and are currently serving, that have served. And I also want to say hi to my good friend George Bellman, my World War II hero. George, along with my dad served in the Navy in World War II. And George, we appreciate you and everybody else here in the Enid community and World War II that have given so much. Commissioner, why is Veterans Day, this may sound like a third grade elementary kind of question, but why is Veterans Day so important that we in this country hang on to that, celebrate it?
Well, I think it's to recognize, it sets aside a day to recognize those that have stepped up and said, you know, I'm not going to be rich by joining the military. I'm not going to maybe get any accolades for joining the military, but it's time for me to serve my country as well. And I think it recognizes those silent heroes, many times silent heroes.
Sure, sure.
Speaking of Veterans Day, has anyone done anything special or like that stood out to you for Veterans Day?
Personally, I don't know. I can't think of anything offhand, but I know the Enid community is great when it comes to veterans. I can't tell you how many times I've been to We Too restaurant and seen people in military uniform, and they'd go up to the counter to pay their check to find out that somebody had already paid it. Happens all the time in this city, and not just at We Too, it happens all the time.